That Title 42, man. It's Title 42 week. And when Title 42 expires, it's going to be bad. Did I mention that Title 42 is the current thing to talk about? I know I mentioned Title 42, but I just want to make sure that you heard me say Title 42 because it's Title 42 week. And it's really important that you hear me say Title 42 on and on it goes. I mean, you could get a calendar at this point, and every Monday you could just write down the subject of the week if you wanted to. I mean, it might actually be kind of interesting to do that. You could look back on it later, remember all the things that had their 15 minutes of fame and also all the things that got memory hold. Yeah. So while everybody is, oh my God, the Title 42, how many people have actually taken the time to find out what it is? Where did it come from? When did it become whatever it is? And what in the hell does it have to do with illegal aliens? Well, let's talk about that for a minute. Title 42 is a chapter of the Public Health Service Act of 1944. See, in 1944, while we were fighting fascism, imperialism, and socialism on a world scale, Congress thought it would be a good idea and a good time to vote themselves more power over public health. Now, you might imagine people would be cautious about handing the government more power, especially, power over their well-being, while we were fighting regimes whose people had done exactly that on a global scale. But I'm also thinking that the majority of people were a little bit distracted and probably didn't know this was happening. You see, the thing about 1944 is it was not a slow news year for, the world. The Public Health Service Act probably got a little overshadowed by, well, you know what? Let me just give you the dates, okay? The Public Health Service Act, it passed the House on 22 May 1944, passed the Senate on 22 June 1944. Now, can you think of any major events that were happening in between those two dates? I'll give you a hint. Google Omaha Beach. Now, the reason I'm, spending so much time on the history lesson is because I want to put things into perspective. I just want to highlight the origins of this thing to help you see first, and number one, just how long the erosion of our liberties has been developing, and second, to show you the absurdity of how this is now being used today. Hopefully we're on the same page now, and that'll bring us to the Title 42 section of the Public Health Service Act. Here's the actual wording of it. I'll put it on the screen for you so that you can see it. Title 42, United States Code, Chapter 6A, Subchapter 2, Part G, Section 265 states, suspension of entries and imports from designated places to prevent spread of communicable diseases whenever the Surgeon General determines that by reason of the existence of any communicable disease in a foreign country there is a serious danger of the introduction of such disease into the United States. Surgeon General is in accordance with regulations approved by President, has the power to prohibit in whole or in part the introduction of persons and property from such countries or places as they designate in order to avert the danger and for such period of time as he may deem necessary for such purpose. So, what does all that mean? Well, if you look at it on the surface, it doesn't seem that bad, right? It just gives the government, well, actually, it gives one man, the Surgeon General, a route to enact absolute authority over the entire border of the United States. Oh, but don't worry, citizen. The government will only use this in good faith, and they'll limit themselves to only exercising it in extreme emergencies. In fact, you don't even need to look at Title 42 because we have other agencies, right, that are actually there to protect our borders. And they have an entirely different set of policies and regulations that an illegal alien would have to contend with. So this is barely even a footnote. It's just an added layer of safety. So move along, citizen. Nothing to see here. Oh wait, except here we are 80 years later and things have changed a little bit. You might even say that Title 42 didn't age well, or aged about as well as this Twitter quote. Yeah, those other agencies that were guarding our border, Well, they've gone through a lot of changes over the years too. Just look up the history of U.S. Immigration Services. The history is a little complex, and it consists of bureaus being formed, bureaus being combined, etc., and that happens for a while. And that brings us up to 2002. Now, the year before 2002 was also not a slow news year, as a lot of you might remember. I'll give you a hint. Google Al-Qaeda. You'll find them listed under CIA pets or, Soviet Union's Afghanistan Happy Fun Time Dance Party. That's a whole other story. So after 9/11, we the people decided to hand over more of our liberties to the government so that they could protect us from their former pet projects. Because logic, I guess, or actually the opposite of logic, fear. It's a common theme whenever we trade liberty for security. Yeah. So once we gave a bunch of our liberties over to the government again in 2002 after the tragic events of September 11, 2001, it came into being as the Homeland Security Act of 2002. It birthed the Department of Homeland Security, which really just consists of folding 22 agencies into one agency, which is good, right? More streamlined, huh? Yeah. Why have 22 different agencies which can be singled out for, specific jobs and be held accountable for their actions when you can fold them all into one and make it easier to control under one man? We'll call him a dictator, or we'll call him a director, because when has consolidating power ever gone wrong? Yeah. Yeah, okay, so now Border Patrol falls under DHS. Now bring politics into the mix, and the lies, the pandering, and the greed of politicians, and voila, disaster. You see, the only agency responsible for guarding the border gets all the heat when politicians, aka leftists, start pointing at it, and when those politicians are in power. The big bad agency gets neutered. Okay, so that happens and continues to happen, and then comes President Trump. Build that wall, right? Yeah, he's gonna fix it all and secure the borders. Oh, but wait, he's fighting a massive political conglomerate of 22 agencies merged into one, controlled by one man with deep political connections and ties to the opposing party. That's a long-winded way of saying deep state. So needless to say, President Trump, he got some resistance, putting it lightly. And then comes COVID, emergency. Everything is now emergency powers. And since Trump was fighting an uphill battle against the deep state, the new emergency, instead of permanently gutting the DHS deep state apparatus, he can now throw some Title 42 at him, so long as he can get the Surgeon General on board, right? Which he did. It's the Surgeon General basically had to sign on to this because he couldn't be the guy that disregarded COVID. He's the Surgeon General. So to sum this up, in all of its absurdity, the government had to use emergency powers to make the government do what it should have been doing already, but wasn't doing and hasn't been doing since the early 1980s. Stay with me. The thing that the government used to make the government do what it should have already been doing was just temporary, barely effective, and an abuse of power relative to the Constitution. And that abuse of power dated back 80 years ago from an act that was passed at the height of a global war. If you need to rewind the video 20 seconds to hear that again because it's kind of confusing, don't feel bad. I had to read it a few times myself, and I wrote the damn script. So what's the overall point here? I'm trying to highlight the absurdity of what you're being told to believe in and fight about. I'm also trying to get you to really understand the immensity of the deep state. It's not about the existence of it. The existence is beyond proven. The size of it and the convoluted mess it has become is the real issue here. The idea that we can have an entire massive agency like the DHS mandated to protect our border, and then have that agency blatantly disregard its duties while still maintaining the legality of what it's doing, the justification of its budget, and still manage to exist, that's beyond absurd. The fact that one part of the government had to abuse its power to get another part of the government to barely do its job, just a little bit. Well, there you go. All of the adjectives, right? Insane, absurd, illegal, disastrous. Focus on the problem at hand. The very real, large problem. The fact that our government is constitutionally bound to do this job, to protect our borders, and is, in fact, breaking the law by not doing that job. See, I don't need a Title 42 to say this, because there's already another law in place to back me up. And this law was established way before the Public Health Service Act, Title 42, or DHS ever came into existence. Isn't that neat? Here, let me show you the original law. This is the original law of our land. It's called the Constitution. It's way easier than trying to read an act passed by politicians. Article 4, Section 4, it says the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government and shall protect each of them against invasion and on application of the legislator or of the executive when the legislator cannot be convened against domestic violence. So the important part, shall protect each of them against invasion. This document doesn't waste space on needless words. It says exactly what it means and means what it says. It is the law of the land. Now, as you can see here, it's not too thick, not a lot of wasted space here. Plain and simple. According to Article 4, Section 4, the government's breaking the law. I know, right? When is that news? I know you're smirking. Maybe you're even rolling your eyes and thinking to yourself, add it to the list of laws that politicians in the deep state have already broken. Exactly. My point exactly. But wait, there's more. What's on the next page, I wonder? The very next page. Well, let's see. That's the end of Article 4, so I'd take a bet that it's Article 5. What a coincidence, huh? It's almost like whoever wrote this little thing knew a little something about history and human nature. Go ahead and read Article 5. It's a good one, and I really mean that. Good day.